Hi, everybody. I'm George, and welcome to the best little horror house in Philly, the show where we talk about the best horror movie ever made, according to our guest, at least. And today's guest is an incredible cartoonist, Slack's resident movie buff, and the fastest horse in the valley. A.T. Pratt is here. How's it going, pal?
Yo, welcome back. Or are you sure it's not Mr. David Lynch himself in the recording booth?
It may very well be. You've got quite the outfit on in order to represent David. I respect the look.
This is early David here. He used to wear a floppy hat. New David is sort of more streamlined. He wore in the filming of the movie we will be discussing. He wore sort of a floppy fedora, as well as not one, not two. Well, sometimes two. He would wear two ties, one that he always wears, and then two, the chosen one for the day. And then when filming, he wore three ties. So that is how many I'm wearing for the recording.
You sure are. I got to say, you're pulling it off, man. I'm digging the look.
Thank you. I'm inside, though, with heat on, so I might shed the David layers as we go.
A sexy treat.
Yep. Stripping David.
Like I said in your intro, you're a huge movie buff.
I'm a cinephile, and sort of my it's unique personality that I like movies. And, not a lot of people have accessed that sort of personality yet.
I'm curious sort of where that came from for you and when horror sort of entered the picture.
Well, I've liked I've been I'm just been a big fan of sitting in front of the screen ever since I was a little boy. I would dance in front of the TV to Elvis and Singing in the Rain. And I was too much of a coward to watch horrors when I was a very, very little boy. Like, I didn't have any older siblings that exposed me to Freddy or Chucky. Those were just the scary VHS covers. But I started experimenting with the genre. I think through vampires might have been my first subgenre in middle school. I was reading some Tomb of Dracula Marvel comics and researching Blade and watching the Blade films as a sort of a gateway. But
love Blade.
Blade's a lot of fun, but it not really like horror.
No, more action utilizing horror elements.
Yeah, and I had a friend in middle school who she was obsessed with the Saw movies, and I thought that this was just disgusting that she liked this messed up stuff. And we would kind of argue about it, and then she bought me a Saw DVD for my birthday, and it's a fun DVD. It's got the clear case, and the disc is a circular saw.
That's right. I remember it well.
Neither of those were really too super formative, but just like once I started, I never stopped. Yeah, I do. I don't get to the movie yet, right?
No, I mean, if it's part of your formative years, then certainly we could start talking about it now.
I would say it's very formative.
We're talking about Eraserhead.
Yes, and this is a movie that it's not for little kids, and it's I think I was around age 12 or 13. So I was watching a lot of horror movies, and it's like appears on lists, and I thought, yeah, I'll check this out. It seems like fun. It was my first David Lynch movie, first David Lynch anything, and I did not know what I was getting into. And I got my shit all the way freaked by that little baby.
Yeah, all right. Well, this is a perfect segue. This was also my first entry into David Lynch. And I liked it. I liked it a whole bunch. I thought it was really beautifully shot, and the way that it looked was really spectacular. But I didn't really connect with it totally. I did, like a lot of people do. I kind of looked at it and I was like, oh, this is just like weird. It's just weird to be weird. And I think that that's very much not the case with this movie. And having now come back to it after exposing myself to the rest of David Lynch's filmography, I think that it sort of primes you for an understanding of this work. And I think that,
Sort of a Rosetta Stone.
well, no, like the reverse Rosetta Stone, where you need to have an understanding of David Lynch's language in order to come to this and understand it.
That's true, yeah. But you do see a lot of the stuff in here continues on throughout. And I'm sure we'll get to all that.
Right, it does persist, and I enjoyed it a lot more this time through, even though I already enjoyed it the first time. So
I'm glad you did, George, because if you keep on slandering my Eraserhead, I'm about to erase your head.
Oh shit! Wow, I'm glad that we got that threat recorded, folks. I'm curious if you feel like horror has influenced your art at all.
Oh yeah, well, I think I like drawing just creepy and freaky stuff. I mean, I think I can blame my mother partly because we would go to museums a lot when I was a little kid, and I would get bored, and especially in like the religious areas of the museums, and my mom knew how to keep me interested. She would always point out the dragons and the devils in those paintings. And yeah, I like stuff that I haven't seen before and stuff that makes my skin crawl. And I think I'm like my mom reads all my work, and I don't want to offend her sensibilities too bad. But yeah, I think I'd like to do more horror. I make comic books, but I draw, like, I think it's kind of a default to draw. I mean, not that I only do one kind of thing. I
Right.
can do cute stuff too, but I have this game that I played with my mom too that is called Do You Trust This Man? And it's kind of based around just the inclination that I have to keep drawing until these men are completely untrustworthy, which isn't hard, right? Yeah, but
Yeah, no, definitely not. That's funny as hell. That's a great game. So when we were discussing your pick, a lot of your potential choices were pretty goopy.
I love the goop.
You love the goop, but that's not the only type of movie we've talked about you liking before. You even mentioned at the very beginning that you sort of delved into like vampire stuff as a subgenre before like moving forward. And so I'm curious if you have a subgenre where you're like, yeah, that's my favorite. I'm like, I just give that like the benefit of the doubt and assume that I'm gonna like stuff that falls within this.
Yeah, I tend to like, and this is kind of an umbrella that a lot of other subgenres fall into, but I tend to like body horror, and I think that watching like Saw in middle school and then seeing this Eraserhead baby, it just like seeing stuff go wrong with the human body is a lot scarier and more disturbing to me than, say, ghosts or Satan. I was not raised religious, though I love the Satan imagery. So I would say body horror, or I love Texas Chainsaw, and that is towards the top for me too. So just like human beings, I'm terrified of other humans and what they can be capable of. Texas Chainsaw 2 was also up there for me. I just like the performances in there and the environment that they inhabit. It's just like being in the same space as Chop Top and the family, and being in this Bones art installation. Yeah, The Shining is towards the top for me too. And it's like, I think psychological horror and body horror tend to be my faves, and just like stuff that functions as art and cinema beyond the. But I hesitate to say that because I feel like Eraserhead is a bit of an arty pick. I went to art school. I try to have good taste, but I love bad taste too. I like the pre Lord of the Rings Peter Jacksons. I love Evil Dead was also a choice. Evil Dead 2 was taken, and then I rewatched Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, and I was like, I just love these both of these. And Evil Dead 2 has so much good stuff. I feel like I couldn't really make the argument Evil Dead 1 is the best. But
Right.
Eraserhead hit me is so young, and just like the feeling of being in the movie like hit me at my core, that like I didn't know I could be unsettled in that way.
Yeah.
And so there's many reasons why maybe I should spread myself out a little bit. I'm not sure what I'll get into here in my intro versus, but I would say like Shining being a runner up. You know what Stanley Cubes said was his favorite film of all time, and played for the cast of The Shining to get them in the
This
mood.
one.
You got it. So it was inspiring for me to read through all of. David got like a long time to get this movie off the ground, and it was
Oh,
not
yeah.
received well, and like it kind of grew a reputation, I think, because like the imagery is so powerful, and like a lot of people are just going to see this and be like, I don't want any part of this. It's fucking not fun to watch. But I think, that's part of why it's so effective. Like Texas Chainsaw too, like the sound design of that as well. I think that's why that one is towards the top. And I think it's less so in the second one. There's less of like the pig sound effects, and like Texas Chainsaw 1, it sounds like you're in a slaughterhouse, and
Right.
it really feels like you're there. And
Very evocative.
yeah, the environment of the sound and the art direction, and just like I feel like Eraserhead is the whole package. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun, but
No,
I think I've
think you're
made my
right.
thesis statement.
Yeah, definitely. And Eraserhead definitely does fall within sort of that body horror, goopy sort of vibe.
There's goop.
Like we said, this is a David Lynch production. It's his first feature and a Philly classic. And this, in fact, catapults him into a tie for first place with legendary John Carpenter for movies picked on this show.
Oh, wow.
This is sort of a Philadelphia film. And like I said somewhere, that Philadelphia, to me, is a city that's really filled with fear.
Wow. So what better choice for best little horror house in Philly than the Philadelphia film, Eraserhead,
right.
directing by our favorite Uncle Dave.
I think that it's really interesting sort of that John Carpenter and David Lynch are the two that have really connected with so many people with so many different movies, because on the one hand, they're kind of like peas in a pod with you got Badalamenti and John on the synths. Both directors are kind of doing their like auteur thing where they do a lot of the production and writing and directing and everything. But on the other hand, where Carpenter does this very bold and brash, here's a horror movie kind of stuff, Lynch does this like creepy, unsettling horror that gets under your skin through both the surrealism and how grounded it can be in real life terror. And I just think that it's really interesting that it is sort of like both prongs, I feel like, of where horror can come from in this like monstrous like slasher way, and also in this just really unnerves you kind of way. Plus, both of them still have plenty of movies that I could feasibly see being picked for the show, including Halloween, Christine, In the Mouth of Madness, or Mulholland Drive, or Fire Walk with Me. So,
oh wow, yeah, those haven't been picked at. I just pause and rewind, George, because I was talking through all my runners up and my body horror and my some of my favorite picks, and Texas Chainsaw and Shining, they were taken. Evil Dead 2 was taken, but those were not my finalists. I think even if they were not already shown on the show, my three finalists were. and you want me to talk about one movie, but I'm a maverick, just like John McCain, and I can't talk about body horror without mentioning my buddy David Cronenberg himself.
that's right.
My other two finalists for my appearance on BLHHIP were The Fly and Videodrome, and these are both very special to me as well. I'll try to just blaze through this, George.
Sure, we love Crony.
I was not authorized to. I'm bucking the format. So Fly, it's got the goop. It's got central performance by Goldblum. We don't know what he's up to in his personal life, but he's very effective as this nerd who becomes increasingly untrustworthy.
Do you trust this man? No.
I'm not sure I do. You know what? I'm not sure I do, George. And I feel Eraserhead is very personal to me, but there's reasons why the others are as well. And The Fly, I was actually going through a Brundle fly experiment of my own. In the experience of running outside in the COVID era, as opposed to my elliptical in the gym that never hurt me, I built up blood underneath my toenails, and one of my toenails had to be removed.
Ugh.
So I regret not asking for that big toenail for my Brundle museum, but I feel like I could have brought that personal experience to that episode. So I'm sorry to the listeners that will not come to pass in this coming hour or however we go. Videodrome is I think it's got a lot to say about what we expose ourselves to on the screens. We're obsessed with the screens, and we, especially as horror fans, we gravitate towards the more and more extreme stuff as we become desensitized. And it's got a lot to say about our culture, our screens. Putting a gun into a hole in your belly and taking it out, and I mean,
it's well ahead of its time as well. The fact that it was made so long ago and really is still so representative of where we're at in our relationships with media and with the screens, I think is really shocking. How incredibly well it still holds up. Which is maybe not a good thing for us.
Yeah, and that was even at a period of time where we did not have increasingly hardcore pornography available on our screens at all times. Like, this is very prescient, that this guy was like searching for this violent sexual stuff. I would say that maybe is not my. I'm a little bit. I was my dad's Protestant. I'm a little bit repressed to be taken on that subject matter. And on that note, I also self-rejected another finalist by my buddy Clive Barker, the Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2, Hellbound.
Yeah.
These are, I think, if we're going on imagery alone, these are the best. You know.
Sure. Chatterer is my boy. People know this.
Chatterer 1, not Chatterer 2.
Although I do also like the chattery dogs in Inferno.
Wow. Yeah. And I think the Frank's regeneration in Hellraiser 1 is sublime cinema.
Yeah.
And the Cenobites you don't really get. I mean, besides the Xenomorph, which Alien was also already taken, and that would have also been one of my top ones. I love a space movie, and you don't really get much scarier space. Event Horizon also great as far as space and body horror.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Hellraiser, I felt like I couldn't all the way endorse it as the top horror because of the
sexual elements.
Well, I might not be the top pain pleasure S&M expert, so I thought I'd leave that to somebody else. But also, the acting is just it's a little rough at times.
It's not perfect.
Yeah.
I think that Julia is a great villain. I think that she does a great job of sort of portraying that decline. But yeah, especially the dad does get a little rough at times. Although I do think that he does a really great job when he transitions into like Frank Dad.
Yeah.
It is great. It's a really great movie. Both
Come to Daddy. It's very creepy.
Yeah.
And his face is falling off. Oof.
Oh God.
It's really good.
Yeah.
That's like some great goop.
Movie.
I watched all of these in preparation, but Eraserhead was first. I think I might have watched it before all of these, and for that reason it hit me in this elemental place, and
sure.
it still gets me to this day. I think like it's not as schlocky as some other fun favorites, but it puts me in a place of true horror like few others. The horror of being a human being with responsibilities, like a little baby with pustules all over him and crying all night, and it's real. It's I haven't
It is
seen a
real.
baby like that, and I have not reproduced so far, but I Eraserhead, and I'm finally willing to speak about the movie I promised to talk about today.
Yeah, we did like 10 mini episodes in there. Everyone, you're getting your bang for your buck on here.
I was wondering if I would get away with it, and thank you for not pulling the brakes on me.
No, I would never. Wouldn't dream of it, Andy. So, as we discussed on the Blue Velvet episode, David Lynch grew up in like the suburban Pacific Northwest. And that was when he moved to Philly to study painting in the 60s before eventually dropping out to head to LA. But those 3 semesters that he was here really had an impact on David. It might be worth setting the scene a little bit. Oh, hats off, folks.
Hats off to you.
Started.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, so to set the scene, although some things have stayed the same, like the various row homes lining the streets instead of like big open lawns and whatever, Philadelphia in the late 60s was a very, very different place. The manufacturing sector of the city was really on the decline. It had created a serious economic stress on people here, and it was pre-Clean Air Act, so the factories that were still here were pumping this like gross black smog into the air that just hung around like a funeral shroud. And then on top of all of these economic factors, Frank Rizzo was the police commissioner. This was right before his first mayoral term. And for people who don't know Frank Rizzo, he's a scumbag who famously created an environment where police abuses could run rampant, including brutality, intimidation, and coercion. He also was a huge racist. He encouraged the police to terrify black and brown people. He raided the Black Panther Party headquarters illegally. And of course, as mayor, handled the first conflict with MOVE, where he told armed police to forcibly evict these people, and then the police accidentally shot their own guy and blamed MOVE, which created this huge shootout with a ton of injuries and everything. It was basically an unmitigated disaster. Frank Rizzo, an unmatched blemish on Philadelphia as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, sounds like it.
And so this is the environment that David is entering, and it's understandable why this might be a little bit of a shock to the system for someone coming from this like Pleasantville style suburb, basically.
Yeah, and didn't he meet Peggy, his first wife, there? And I think they might have had their child while they were still there. And I know that they were robbed twice and
3 times.
Oh, 3 times! Wow,
thrice even.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's an electric time. People were scared of the police, of losing work, of falling ill. And Lynch said, like we said, he had his house robbed 3 times. He said, the fear, insanity, corruption, filth, despair, violence in the air was so beautiful to me because it gave me a lot of new ideas and a new way of seeing things. And I think that in his own words, Philadelphia's influence on him, it's hard to overstate, I think, because I think that moving from this very like idealized suburb that he has in his mind into something that was so depths of humanity at the time, as far as he was concerned, it created this dichotomy that is really, really visible in all of his movies about sort of the seedy underbelly and the darkness within humanity and everything. And this contrast between industrial and natural that I think is really interesting in a lot of his work.
Yeah, there's a great passage in here. I've got so in my Criterion edition of Eraserhead, it comes with this little book that is a section of Lynch on Lynch. So there's a little bit about the environment that I think he was inspired by and that he creates in the movie. In my mind, it was a world between a factory and a factory neighborhood. A little unknown, twisted, almost silent, lost spot where little details and little torments existed. And people were struggling in darkness. They're living in those fringe lands, and they're the people I really love. Henry's definitely one of these people. They kind of get lost in time. They're either working in a factory or fiddling with something or other. It's a world that neither here nor there. Came out of the air in Philadelphia. I always say it's my Philadelphia story. Just doesn't have Jimmy Stewart in it. So yeah, I think he sees kind of like forgotten people, and I think he's seeing the death of the American dream. You know, he comes from the picket fences, and he saw what it's really like in a city. especially when he was there in Philly. And yeah, it kind of runs through all of his work.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't get a chance to see Philadelphia Story before I recorded the podcast. I told you not to mention it to embarrass
throwing
me.
me under the bus.
But if this is his version of Philadelphia Story, except that one has Jimmy Stewart, I can pretty much imagine it. What are you doing there? Why are you turning my head into an eraser? I'm Jimmy Stewart. Don't take my head and put it into an eraser. Pipe down,
Merry
you
Christmas,
freak
you
baby.
old freakish baby.
Hey, what's the big idea?
Mary, you're a sick baby. And so and also, if anyone cares, he lived on the 2400 block of Poplar. There you go.
Wow, this is a real Philly podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know where that is.
Oh, second layer coming off, folks. Here we go. And so one of these new ideas that David got from his time in Philadelphia was using film to animate his experimental paintings, which is what he was there to study. The short film 6 Men Getting Sick 6 Times was developed in that first semester and was received well to the point that somebody commissioned David to do another experimental piece for them. That piece wound up falling through, but he was allowed to keep the remaining funds, which led to his short film, The Alphabet. And I know that you watched this as well. I rewatched The Alphabet too before this. And I do think that there are some clear through lines from it to Eraserhead in both the look of it and the nightmare aspects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just love these. I watched all the short films on my disc, and there was Six Men Getting Sick, Alphabet, the Grandmother, the Amputee, and Premonitions Following Evil Dead. That's just a minute. Who cares? But the Alphabet and the Grandmother. Did you see the Grandmother?
Grandmother's really good. Yeah,
it's amazing.
I've seen the collection, and it's really, really great. I like from his short works. I really like. I think it's just called like Boat, and
I gotta see
it's
this
like
one.
It's very satisfying. Like just someone like
little yachty. It's like a little yachty,
exactly. Little boat.
Biopic.
He's doing his thing. He sings broccoli. That's really good. I like Rabbits.
Oh yeah, Rabbits. I've seen Rabbits.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think I like Rabbits more than I like Inland Empire, actually.
Oh wow, yeah.
And I know that it sort of became Inland Empire. He cut a lot of Rabbits and sort of just interspersed it into it. But I really like Rabbits as its own sort of whole entity. I think that's really good. And then, of course, What Did Jack Do is a lot of fun on Netflix. God damn you to Tataban.
Yeah, I just like these first three, especially like seeing a painter kind of transform into an animator, into a film director who I think he kind of keeps the heart of an animator and a painter in all of his work. And
yeah.
I just really love.
Have you seen Dumbland?
I just saw the first episode and I was saving it, and now you called me out. This is an odds and ends that I did not get to.
Wow, and you wanted to watch the Philadelphia Story instead of Dumbland.
I know but the Grandmother and the Alphabet especially, they've got like really great horror imagery in them to the point where I was like, the Eraserhead actually loses some of the like. Those almost feel like more like pure horror almost. Alphabet and the Grandmother also that has like direct precedence for what we find in here. There's like mounds of dirt and
didn't Grandmother come out after it though?
No, 1970. And I think that's the one. Grandmother is what he made with He was in Philly going to art school, and then he learned about the American Film Institute Advanced Cinema.
Right. Alphabet
Fellowship
got him a production grant from the AFI, and he dropped out of PIFA to study at their conservatory in LA.
Yeah. So I think the grant paid for Grandma, and then he started working on. He worked on Eraserhead when he was at the conservatory fellowship, whatever it was. But yeah, I think Grandmother was what he made from that original grant.
Okay, I know there was also one that he made. Like they wanted to test a new film stock or something. So I'll do it.
That's amputee, yeah. And
Right.
Catherine Coulson actually gets to be on camera in that one.
We love to see it. The log lady, Jack Nance's wife, at the time,
she
they since divorced.
yeah, but they remained friends and appeared on
That's
Twin
right.
Peaks together. And I think one of the biggest stories of all this behind the scenes stuff I've been watching about Eraserhead is how much Catherine Coulson was like a champion.
Instrumental.
Yeah, I'll read a little bit of Lynch on Lynch. She was promised to she was going to be a nurse in the hospital for them to go get the baby, and it says here Catherine kept joking, "When am I going to shoot my scene?" Like 5 years later and stuff like this. Maybe she was serious. Maybe she actually wanted to be on camera. But Catherine has got this personality where she sort of denies every kind of desire for herself and fulfills those of others. When everyone else was sleeping during the day, she was out earning money as a waitress. She'd bring her tips back and food from the restaurant and take care of stuff. And many times she put her own money into the film. So she's like doing so much for this movie. She learned how to she started out, I think, holding a boom, and then she learned how to run the cameras, and it sounded like she was just doing everything back there. She did the hair. She actually says that she regretted not taking the credit for that hair for Mr. Nance or whatever.
Yeah, it's such an iconic like piece of the character. I think that she should get credit for it.
Yeah. So thank God that he followed through on it. I think he conceived of Log Lady while filming Eraserhead, and that he followed through on that at least. I think that she seems like very grateful that it led to this whole huge part of her career, and we love her and we honor her.
Yeah, we do. She's great.
And this is crazy. The stuff about his original ideas for Log Lady. She was gonna have her own show, a half-hour TV show called "I'll Test My Log with Every Branch of Knowledge," and her husband had been killed in a forest fire, and his ashes are on the mantelpiece with his pipes and his sock hat. He was a woodsman. Got a light, but the fireplace is completely boarded up because she is now very afraid of fire. But yeah,
I think that happens in the books, I believe.
Really?
In Secret History of Twin Peaks, that's the backstory, is that she got all fucked up from like an alien abduction as a kid, and then she had this like great husband that everyone loved, and then he died in a forest fire. Wow. And it fucked her up even more.
Well, you're more of a frosthead than I am.
It's his spirit. His spirit is the one in the log.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, and there's this fun description of what she was going to like bring her log to the dentist, and they sometimes go to a diner and they never get to where they're going. I would have liked to see this spin-off, but yeah, her iconic performance in Twin Peaks and in The Return.
Margaret Lanterman.
Yes.
She's great.
We love her.
She also did the little intros for all the episodes that are really great as well. Nice little bonus log lady action.
Oh, I haven't seen those.
Oh, they're great. She gives like these very like cryptic clues as to what you're about to see. Nice little bit of lore. But
love it.
When David got to the conservatory, he was initially intending to make a movie called Garden Back, which was a 45-minute surrealist film about adultery and coveting your neighbor, represented by a continuously growing insect. And AFI said, this is too long for such a weird surrealist script. And so David said, okay, here's a 21-page script for Eraserhead. And people think that this was inspired by his fear of fatherhood. And of course, he refuses to explain it himself, characteristic of David. But he had very recently had his daughter Jennifer unexpectedly. She was born with severely clubbed feet that needed surgery. And the main character does look a lot like David between the hairdo and the style and everything. So it does stand to reason for me that this is a little bit of a self-insert kind of getting his fears out on celluloid kind of thing.
There's a pretty absurd part in here where they're like, the interviewer is saying, you're being the reluctant art school father, and she had the club feet. And also in the movie, Henry works as a printer, which David also did.
The name of the factory that he works at is even the name of the owner of the print shop that David worked at.
Wow. Yeah. And then he's like, sure, obviously, since a person is alive and they're noticing things around them, ideas are going to come. But that would mean there'd be 100 million Eraserhead stories out there. Everybody has a kid and they make Eraserhead. It's ridiculous. It's just not that. It's a million other things. So he's like, these are like so one-to-one with your actual life. And he's like, if it was just my own personal experience of having, it's okay. David, you can admit that. I think he just does not want people to think that he's going to take a pair of scissors to Jennifer's internal organs, which
we never would have gotten the Secret Diary of Laura Palmer, which she wrote.
That's correct. Yeah. It's an interesting choice to make your daughter do that.
Well, I don't know about make.
Did she volunteer to do that?
I think so. Or I think he asked her if she would be willing.
Right.
But yeah, I think that does make some sense to me. In Catching the Big Fish, he very explicitly talks about sort of how he just kind of lets the ideas fly past him, and he reaches in. And this is around the time when he was getting into transcendental meditation. And so that is something that he really uses a lot in order to get these ideas and to dive down into himself, as he calls it. But, whatever the meaning is.
He feels, he doesn't think. He kind
That's
of,
right.
he said, I felt Eraserhead. I didn't think it. Yeah. And it's just like, it's kind of like magic that this guy he got to live basically in the stable of the Film Institute for, I think, 2 or 3 full years out of the 5 years that it took to film this thing. He got loans from family members. He fully ran out of money a couple times, but like with the Catherine Coulson, like the people involved believed in this so much, and they described themselves as a family, but like so few people. And
he was also working like a paper route and putting that money right back into it and everything.
That's true. And Nance would help out with the paper route, and it was like it should have taken like hours and hours, but like he would get it done in 2.
And Nance kept the hairdo the whole time.
Yeah. And he had to sit in the middle of a back seat so that people wouldn't stare and make fun of him.
I love the hairdo. I think it's great.
Yeah.
And AFI mistakenly assumed that it would follow the traditional rule of thumb that 1 page of script equals 1 minute of screen time. And so they thought they were going to be getting like a 20-minute short, basically. And several of the board members were still a bunch of old stuffed shirts who didn't want to do it even at 20 minutes. And the dean of the conservatory, Frank Daniel, basically wound up having to threaten to resign in order to get it approved.
That's right. It's crazy how little this guy entering the Film Institute had any concept of what a movie like his
commercially
process,
viable one.
Yeah, his process of working on Garden Back. It sounds interesting when you look at a girl, something crosses from her to you, and in this story that something is an insect. But it was 45 pages. He took his entire first year there to rework this 45 pages. But he was confronted by one of the guys who works there or whatever. He was like, you need to have the people talking to each other. He had to basically explain the concept of like dialogue. And then like in having to add that connective tissue to make it like a normal movie, which thank God he pushed back against this, but he said it was watering it down and it made the project pretty much worthless. And then at the end of his first year, in the second year, instead of like getting to work with the other second year students or something, he was assigned to work with the first year students. So he was like, what, did I fail or something? And he got so mad that he went to the Frank Daniel, who was the guy who was teaching him about dialogue, and he said, "I'm out of here. I quit." This is how much he already believed in his ideas, and he was still figuring out what a damn movie was.
Right.
And then so he goes home, and it turns out, and he's thrown this big tantrum, and they've been calling him off the hook. They don't want him to leave. And so he comes back and he's talking to this Frank, and he says, "We must be doing something wrong because you're one of our favorite people and you're upset. What do you want to do?" So he's already getting the blank check to do whatever he's wanted. Shout out to Blank Check Podcast. And then he says,
shouting out competitors.
wow, okay, competitors. So he says, well, I sure don't want to do this piece of shit garden back now. It's wrecked. And he says, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to do Eraserhead. And then they say, okay, do Eraserhead then. So I don't even know if they saw a script before. This sounds like it was just one exchange where he just like came up with a name out of his ass, maybe. And then he
I think that after that he still had to, in order to get like the resources, had to give like a little bit of a presentation to like the board. To approve it.
So he does the 21-page script, and then they're like, okay, 21-minute movie, and then he's like, I think it's going to be a little more than that. So they were like, okay, 41, and he's like, sure. And then the rest is history. We got an hour-and-a-half movie. There was originally like
it was even longer than that.
Yeah, it was like 2 hours. Yeah. And that played to a shocked audience, as you can imagine. And
all right, well, don't get you're getting too far ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got all my resources out here.
Hey, he's too well prepared, folks.
My extremely dense notes. I'm holding
wow.
to
Oh
the
my
camera.
gosh. Wow. Those are dense.
There's a piece in here that he's talking about filmmakers he admires. And first he's talking about Fellini. He's always talking about a mood. And that's I think, how Lynch is working through moods and less through plot. And that's, I think, inspired by people like Fellini and Bergman. Then he talks about Herzog.
My man.
And he showed a journal that he'd kept. He'd notated every single day. And I said he must have had the world's sharpest pencil, because this writing was crystal clear, but so small you'd need a magnifying glass to read it. The journal was very small, about 2 inches by 2 inches, and each page was filled with 400 or 500 sentences. It was unbelievable. Wow. So I'm a comic book artist. I letter my own stuff. I write my own stuff. I do everything, and I took that as a challenge. So I got about 5,000. I kind of beat Herzog, but it's all right.
Take that, Werner.
And then the interviewer said he can be pretty crazy. He's threatened to shoot people on set. I mean, we know who was asking for it. Kinski was a wild man, but then Lynch said, that's not crazy. Get real, Chris. So we're lucky that Lynch is not pulling a gun on any of these poor actors that dealt with him for 5 years on his first movie.
Yeah, definitely.
6 years.
And so he did finally get it approved. And they let him use the school's campus for the film sets. Like you said, he turned the stables that no longer got used into a series of sets. He lived in them for several years.
Illegal. He admits that this was an illegal thing that he was doing.
We won't tell on you, David.
Yeah.
And they also let him use the Greystone Mansion for scenes, which is also owned by AFI. This place gets used a ton. It's also been used at the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters.
Wow.
It's been in Big Lebowski, Witches of Eastwick, Death Becomes Her, The Prestige. The list goes on and on. And both Gardenback and Eraserhead were influenced by Lynch reading The Metamorphosis while studying. So for once, it is actually appropriate to say that this is Kafkaesque.
Yes, he also talks about his Kafka influence here. He says that like he would be brothers or something.
And, there's also the famous quote where Lynch says, believe it or not, Eraserhead is my most spiritual film, before refusing to elucidate.
No,
and this plays into Catching the Big Fish again, in which he said that the film came together, quote unquote, after he opened the Bible, read a single verse, and then walked away. Although he claims not to remember which verse.
Oh, damn. That was going to be my question.
Something. Yeah, he won't tell. And of course, that is very much like David. Even if this is true, who the hell even knows if he's just adding to the mystery?
He's so elusive and I mean, he'll do interviews, but he will not give you a straight answer, this guy. So he's asking,
an enigma.
Where's the point of view at this film? It's at times it's hard to tell. And he says, I don't know. It is what it is. And then he's asked, like, if you decide you're on one interpretation of events before you start shooting a film, do you feel that will somehow limit the possibilities? He says, I don't even think about that. I don't know quite how to tell you how I do think about it. But you know enough to tell somebody what to do in this scene. This guy just trusts his gut to the point where, like, I think, like, I only trust myself. I want to control everything in my comics, but then I also second guess everything to the point where, like, the ordering people around to create my vision is like, that is a nightmare in and of itself. Like, imagining having this kind of power and this people relying on me to deliver a story that they're involved with for 5 years. It's scary.
It's wild.
He's got balls, this guy, not to use a gendered, he's brave.
He is brave. And, I think that it says a lot about the people that he surrounded him with, that he was able to cast and have crew that was so supportive and did stick with it and was as brave as he is. Jack Nance was cast almost immediately, but they ran into the money troubles so quickly because obviously the budget intended for a 40-minute short or whatever is not going to cover a feature-length movie. So like we said, it took 5 years. They'd run out of money after 3, and they just had to do so much work in order to make this movie happen. And not only trusting himself, but being so passionate about it that he is willing to get out there and make the money to keep doing it a scene or 2 at a time, I think it really says a lot about his commitment to an artistic expression.
Yeah. And it's like so few people are able to. I'm just so happy that this film was made, because you get the whole career after that where people kind of trust him to have his sort of abstract elliptical thinking. It says in Hollywood, if you can't write your ideas down, or if you can't pitch them, or if they're so abstract they can't be pitched properly, then they don't have a chance of surviving. And he just made it happen. So
big ups to Dino De Laurentiis on that end too, though, to be honest. I mean, so much of his working with Dino as a producer and Dino being able to let go and be like, yes, I do trust you to just execute your vision, whatever that may be. And you do have sort of final edit. It for that to happen after the flop of Dune, is really says a lot about the willingness of Dino De Laurentiis to sort of go out on a limb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was shot with 2 different cinematographers because Herb Cardwell died in his sleep at the young age of 39, 2 years in.
Yeah. Well, he also needed to get paid. So he he took this job where he was
and then died.
He was putting film projectors into planes so that they could watch. It was before video, so they could watch movies on planes. And they would go around doing this. And then they were like, "Where's Herb?" Right? And then they went to his hotel, and Herb was dead in his bed. 2 autopsies were done on Herb, and they still don't know why he died. So I think that certain parts of this, a movie, any creative project is the baby of the creator, and this movie is kind of about a cursed baby, and Eraserhead itself is a bit of a cursed baby in some ways. Itself. I mean, David's playing with some dark magic here, and I'm not going to blame him for Herb's death, of course, but yeah, Herb didn't make it out of Eraserhead alive.
So Frederick Elms took over instead. One thing that's interesting about this movie is that nobody knows how he made the prop kid.
That's cursed. Yes.
Named Spike by Jack Nance. He blindfolded the projectionist and basically just refuses to talk about it beyond saying it was born nearby and it was found. And so this has led to some people thinking that it might be like a skinned rabbit or a sheep or cow fetus. And I'm curious what you think about this thing, because it's really hard to look at.
Well, George, I talked about my personal connections to some of the other films we've discussed in my lengthy intro, and some of the background that I'm bringing to this is not just my relating to Uncle Dave as a visual artist, but also I have worked all of the years since graduating from art school in 2013 as a pet care professional part-time, and the black magic that Dave is playing with in the production of this, he describes defurring a mouse, and the skin or the hairless mouse did not make it to the movie. Did you hear anything about this dead cat that he was messing around with?
That was one of the scenes that got cut, right? Is Henry Spencer is playing with this dead cat, poking it with a stick.
Yeah. So he says, "I love organic phenomena." So he wanted a dead cat. He wanted to study it. So he got it from a vet. He managed to convince a vet to give him a cat that was being put down. Thankfully, we don't hear anything about in the bonus
David
features
Lynch
about
stalking the streets of LA.
David taking
murdering
out this cat. Yeah. So he I mean, and George, we both
Absolutely.
love cats, and I want to take this time to thank you. It's a great time to have me on your podcast because I've taken in a cat of my own that you tagged me in a Twitter thread about this backyard cat
That's
who
right.
now lives in my home. So I can thank you for my new daughter. And let me know if this grizzly cat business it's a horror podcast. So, but this is just, I feel like it's part of the contest of what our Uncle Dave is getting involved in. He put the cat in formaldehyde, and he says it went in like a slinky, sinking down. And then after he put it in to the jar before lunch, after lunch the cat had gone through rigor mortis. So then it was like taking a steel cat out of a glass jar. He says that we opened it up and it was unbelievable. The study of cat was important to him, and he sounds so fast. It's a little perverse. He says the organs were bright colors, and then immediately when he opened it up, they were faded after. This is just the beginning of his experiments with the cat. So there's like a lot of puddles in the movie. We've like barely talked about the actual movie. There's lots of puddles in the movie, swampy, sort of industrial puddles, and there's these pool of water with tar at the bottom. He sank this. I assume it's the same cat. Please let this only be one cat. He sank it into the tar water. He pulled it up a year later, and it had been quote unquote impregnated with tar. 2 years, the second year he's pulling it out of the tar water, it became a perfect marriage of cat and earth. In the deleted scene, Henry caught his foot on a wire attached to the cat. That's all the stuff I have on the cat.
Look, here's what I'll say. I love David Lynch. There's no denying that he's a fucking weirdo.
There's something to some of these horror directors are not the most savory individuals. And
no, it's true. And I think that there is an understandable sort of fascination with death and, the great beyond and whatever.
And I don't want to be too incriminating. He seems like a nice guy, and we are dealing with all dead animals as far as we know. I mean, it's exactly. Fully serial killer material. If any of these animals were alive, then we fully denounced Uncle Dave.
But as far as we know, it wasn't. So
yeah.
Uncle Dave.
And
we're on thin ice. But
I think I mentioned Videodrome without denouncing James Woods. So Jimmy,
James
you're
Wood,
dead to us,
scumbag.
Yeah, fuck you, Jim.
Yeah, you fucking suck, dude.
Yeah. So I'm done talking about that awful cat. I think like that he won't say what he made the baby out of is very disturbing, and it looks so organic. And I'm just like, having just watched Alien and the Alien commentary, and them talking about how they used like shellfish and seafood for the inside of the face grabber, face hugger, chest buster, face hugger. Sorry, and that got me thinking. Like, this thing just like looks like it's made out of animal material, and then also that they were talking about how they use umbilical cords for some of these little spermy, wormy, snaky guys in this movie. That the lady in the radiator, she's squishing them. Later, he's tossing them against the wall. These were umbilical cords, and they affectionately call them billy cords. And they said we were never short of billy cords. That seems like it was even easier than going to the vet to get the dead cat. They went to the hospital, and they were just like, "Yeah, have all the billies you want."
Look, it was a different time, folks.
Yeah.
The sound design on its own took a whole year. Wow. Where David and Alan Split lived in a studio apartment that they soundproofed and descended into madness within.
Split. That Split's name is already like a Foley effect in itself. There's a lot of split in this movie.
There definitely is. And some of the sounds in it are actually as many as 15 different sounds layered on top of each other, or things like a microphone in a bottle, in a tub, and then recording the noise that it makes when air gets blown through that. And then like fiddling with pitch and reverb and frequency and stuff. And one of the notable choices in this movie as far as sound design is the inclusion of several constant industrial sounds as like background noise throughout the whole thing.
There's the hum and the hiss of the radiator. There's wind. There's
the factory.
Yeah, there's
the
factory
machinery
noises.
and everything.
And those, there was an interesting part in this book about how like you still get like there's all these hums and hisses and crashing around when he's inside. There seems to be little differentiation between the outside and inside in Eraserhead. Something that becomes you get that in Twin Peaks too.
Yeah.
It's just a noisy movie, and the like you can't understate like how important the sound design and the soundtrack with all the sounds is to creating the mood and the what's like so disturbing about this movie, like being in this space and being inside of Henry's head.
Yeah, definitely. The sound for the movie also includes the song In Heaven, written and performed by Peter Ivers, although the lyrics are from Lynch himself. And I think that you mentioned earlier that the test screenings went very poorly, and they played to a shocked audience, I think you said, yes. Mm-hmm. And so Lynch cut 20 minutes. And from their description, I don't think we're missing much, including the playing with the dead cat and somebody being tortured.
He was a madman, though. He had actually. This was another thing that Catherine Coulson was cut from. She like asked all these women if they were willing to be like tied up with battery cords, and nobody wanted to do it. So she's one of two women that are tied up. But they play this movie for this crowd, and they're all like, holy shit, what did we just watch? Also, he was in the back of the theater cranking it up the decibels as the movie went on, so he was blowing out the ears of the front row as well. And then he feels like it didn't go like he wanted, and then he goes and he cuts, I think I'm getting this word right, the composite, like I think that this is like the master film strip or whatever. He just like straight up cuts it without even the knowledge of like how to stitch it back together again. And it sounds like in doing this process, he's like, I wish I had that footage because I still love those scenes. He just went like nuts with the scissors, like he's our buddy Henry at the end of the movie.
Wow. There you go. Perfect tie-in.
Yeah. And then we got also great, I think it's like, is it organ music by Fats Waller? That's great. That's also a great element of the sound in the movie. And it reminded me, I mean, this was my first association having watched it as a younger child, more appropriate for children. It reminded me of Wallace and Gromit music, what Gromit listens to on the radio.
Right.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. Maybe it's the same universe.
Yeah.
The new cut version, though, became kind of this slow burn hit because it had multi-year runs at several theaters as a midnight movie, eventually grossing over $7 million at the theaters. And Lynch has said that John Waters had a lot to do with it, thanks to his praise of the movie at screenings of stuff like Pink Flamingos and Female Troubles, both of which are also popular midnight movies. And one thing that I think is really interesting is that so many midnight movies are great, but really benefit from the audience experience with a crowd. And I think that Eraserhead sort of differentiates itself in that I think that watching it at home and really being able to let the content wash over you and the legitimate creepiness that comes out of it, I think that might be spoiled by a lot of people sort of acting up like you might at a midnight movie. And so I'm curious sort of what you think about this being so different from a lot of midnight movies and still finding its success in there.
Yeah. Well, real quick about John Waters, I think like people were so in his corner and it talks about John Waters doing like a Q&A about his own movie and not even talking about the movie and just talking about Eraserhead, how everybody's got to see it. But yeah, I do feel like it's a different experience than watching it at home. I'm lucky that I have along with my new precious daughter, I have a projection screen here, which is a late quarantine purchase that now feels like I can fully enter Henry's head of be inside this movie like never before. I actually was able to see this movie at the IFC Center at 12:25 a.m. on Friday, March 4th at 2018. And unfortunately, I have to say no comment on the quality of the movie. I did fall asleep.
Wow. It's late. It's a late.
I can fall asleep in any movie, really. It's not a comment on the quality. And I also seen it already. But I do feel like just hearing it is a funny movie, but hearing like other people's laughs might change the experience. Like it's a very isolated experience that where he's not the only character in the movie, Henry, but the the way that he's interacting with other human beings is like a profound discomfort and alienation.
Sure, he's very lonely, and I think that him and Mary both feel very jailed and very locked in to where they are and isolated from people because of this situation that they found themselves in.
Yeah.
The critical reception was mixed, with such derision as murkily pretentious sitting side by side with acclaim like Nightmare Clarity. Nevertheless, it has gained an excellent reputation over the years, including influencing incredible directors like Stanley Kubrick, like we said, frequently screened it for the cast of The Shining. He also explicitly said that it was one of his favorite movies. Shinya Tsukamoto also sort of drew a lot of influence from it in his creation of Tetsuo the Iron Man, which is really great.
Yeah, that was actually a runner-up too. I was watching that, and just like those effects are just so wild.
They're great. Well, that's a really great movie.
I thought somebody should pick every single movie that I've mentioned, but Tetsuo has like such the sound design is similar, like the Eraserhead, and they feel like kind of brothers, those movies, because the sound is so oppressive in that one too.
Yeah, last year I did a double feature of a fucked up people named Tetsuo double feature.
Oh, nice.
And I watched Tetsuo the Iron Man and Akira.
Akira would be a good one too.
That was fun.
I was thinking,
a lot of body horror in there.
Should I bring in the animation here? But Lynch is like we said, he's got a heart of an animator.
That's right. And it also influenced E. Elias Marriage's Begotten, which you can hear all about on the Patreon at patreon.com/littlehorrorphl.
Wow.
And H.R. Giger called it one of the greatest films he'd ever seen, coming closer to realizing his vision than even his own movies.
Wow.
So there you go. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back to the show. As we leave 2020 in the rear view and head into 2021, I think we've all earned a resolution to treat ourselves. And nothing says treat like Tuck-Ins, the inside-out all-in-one s'more. With a crunchy handmade graham cracker covered in decadent chocolate and wrapped inside a fluffy marshmallow on a stick, it'll be love at first taste. And there's all kinds of great flavors that you can mix and match, including original, cookies and cream, peanut butter cup, and even some rad seasonal flavors. Plus, unlike a regular s'more, Tuck-Ins can easily be roasted indoors or out, over the fireplace, the fire pit, even the stovetop will do the trick. And they stay delicious for up to 3 months in the freezer. So head to tuckins.com and use the offer code BEST20 to get a whopping 20% off your order, while also letting Tuckins know you heard about them from the Best Little Horror House. That's tuck-ins.com and BEST20 for 20% off. So make the new year a sweet one with the no mess inside out s'more. And now back to the show. To get into the actual movie, the plot here.
What? George, you want to start talking about the movie?
We're finally getting to it.
Oh my God.
Henry Spencer's head is just floating around in space before the camera starts to slow zoom in. Also, I should say, Henry Spencer, that's the name of the dad in Psych. That's a weird coincidence.
Oh, wow.
But we're treated to the sound editing right away as the low rumble sort of intensifies and the sound of whipping wind comes in. I think it's really, really great right away.
Can I dub over some drones after we're done recording?
We'll throw in some ambient music for sure. But eventually we see the man in the planet who pulls a lever as Henry's mouth opens and a sperm basically comes out and shoots off into the inky blackness of space. And as more levers get pulled, the sperm flies into a pool of water, this is ultimately an abstract representation of conception, basically, this initial scene. We cut to a more concrete Henry Spencer walking home with his groceries through a worn industrial city. A siren goes off. There's mounds of dirt, the sound of moving mechanisms. It's really great. Like we said, very evocative. It creates this great mood of, like you said, sort of forgottenness. Like, it sounds so busy, but Henry is completely alone as he walks through these streets. Everything looks like it's been abandoned for years. Things are broken. They're dirty.
Yeah, this is even though we don't see him at his job, this is, I think, a plight of a worker, somebody who's not really had a lot of advantages. And I just a couple of notes before we move on. The man in the planet is our first truly horrific example of body horror in this movie. He's got what appears to be either terrible acne or terrible burns, and that's something I identify in the movie with. I have terrible skin, and to this day, almost age 30, and the horror of recognition, seeing yourself on screen. And then, so it's sort of an abstract conception here, and then after we cut from that to straight into Henry's face facing the camera, and it almost looks like we're catching him in the act. Like there's a lot of straight Henry facing the camera and a lot of just great reactions. And he often just seems like embarrassed to be seen and to be known. And like, he almost knows that we've like watched his sperm flying around, you know?
Yeah, I think that Jack Nance is doing a lot of really great physical acting in this movie. You know, not only does he have an extremely expressive face in which he looks permanently abashed and embarrassed.
And wounded,
But even, I mean, sometimes it even feels like he's doing a friggin' like Charlie Chaplin impression. Like as he's walking home and he steps in the puddle and he like shakes it off.
Yeah, he's kind of doing a Chaplin's a good comparison. He's kind of like playfully going on top of some mounds of dirt, lots of mounds of dirt in this movie.
Lots of dirt.
And then he plunges his foot in the puddle, and he like kind of gets scared by a dog barking when he's walking on the train tracks.
Yeah. And it's a lot because he's reacting silently and it's black and white and he does these big like sort of over the top movements. I think it is very sort of evocative of that silent film era and that broad vaudevillian comedy kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And they him and Lynch, they worked through. They did a lot of rehearsing. I mean, they had 5 years, so they had the time. But they like rehearsed every second of movement before they put it on.
Lynch loves to rehearse. I mean, you watch those Twin Peaks special features, and you see him going wild with the rehearsals. Yeah, so, you know, you get this. I also really love the sense of scale that David creates. When he's passing in front of all those windows and he's like super tiny, the building just feels immense.
Yeah.
And it almost sort of feels like Metropolis kind of to me. Like it feels like we're in that sort of like sci-fi dystopia kind of thing. And that sort of steampunk, I guess, is as good of a term as any to sort of refer to it.
Dave is a bit of a steampunk, isn't he? He's a little steampunk in a big technological world.
Yeah, I think that is sort of what gets pulled into stuff like Tetsuo. You know, when Jack Nance later shows up at Mary's house and there's like just random like metal rods sticking out of the ground.
Yeah, there's in when he's going to Mary's house, there's steam coming out of every corner, and even when they're inside of Mary's house, there's pipes all over. Her dad is a plumber, and that actually reminded me a little bit of Brazil with all the like ducts and pipes going around.
Another sort of industrial dystopia, though.
Yeah, and
good representation for Philly. I'm telling you, man.
And we're going by a lot of like electric power plants and a lot of metal and brick and the lights flickering on and off, and we see this again and again in Lynch with the electricity and flickering lights being like it puts us in that uneasy space and
a portent of things to come.
Yeah.
And, usually not good things.
Yeah.
He finally makes it to his apartment building. This is also run down and dingy, but gosh dang, does the shot of him standing in front of the elevator looks good. I mean, it's really, really great. This super wide, you know, it's got the black and white chevron patterned floor, which we of course never see again in Lynch's work.
No red room or black lodge or anything.
No.
Yeah, I was gonna say about the scale too, is like I feel like in this movie we're either treated to like super close-ups where we see like just like very dramatic expressions, or like the characters kind of dwarfed by their surroundings, like in that first shot where we're finished with the planet superimposed with him and the sperm worm flying around. We got him right up in front of us, and then he goes into that tunnel and he becomes so tiny and dwarfed by the landscape.
I think it also helps to establish a sense of claustrophobia when he's stuck in the apartment. You know, that the outside is so huge and inside he's stuck in this tiny little cage, basically.
And great physical humor with the elevator taking so long. And yeah, he's just like waiting, and he's so tiny in that little elevator, and it's like taking forever. Nothing's working out for this guy.
No, it certainly isn't. The beautiful girl across the hall stops him as he opens the door to his apartment and says a girl named Mary has called and invited him to dinner with her family. We get a look inside his apartment, which, like we said, just has random piles of dirt and twigs and stuff inside. Everything is kind of just off, which is something that really appeals to me about body horror. That sort of feeling of humanity like twisted, you know, and this gives me that same kind of feeling. This seems to be like a normal apartment, except for, oh, there's piles of dirt and there's a bowl of water in the drawer and there's these torn up photos and a framed picture of the nuclear tests. And it's normal until you really take it in. I call that the Lynch specialty, baby.
Mm-hmm. And then that pile of dirt with the bony plant coming out of it on his bedside table.
Love it. The Charlie Brown tree.
It could almost be, if you stick a chewed up piece of gum on the end, you could have just have the evolution of the arm right there.
The arm.
Yeah. And then something I don't think we see in the movie, but one thing that I think Catherine Coulson was describing being asked to do was to fill a drawer full of pudding and peas. So I was like, this guy just loves combining. He's so rando.
Lynch, you're so rando. And we also see that tellingly, Henry's window stares out at a blank brick wall.
Right.
I think that this sort of like dead end that he feels like he's in is really sort of brought to light by that.
And that little picture of the nuclear explosion is just it's a good example of just like the America, the American like failed experiment,
Sure.
just like enshrined in this little room.
Yeah,
that David
absolutely.
Lynch lived in, and he's actually describes being very comfortable in there. He knows how to create an environment that he likes to be in.
I'm honestly not surprised that he enjoyed spending time there, but Henry heads to Mary's house. It's spooky as hell. It's all shadowy. Like we said, there are these weird metal rods sticking out of the ground. She immediately jumps on him and says that he's late. She's staring out the window on the door, which is very funny when you like see her face just kind of in the corner there.
Mm-hmm.
And things are really awkward with her mother. But I want to point out two things as well. First is the physical distance between Mary and Henry, which is very clearly sort of like embodying the emotional gap between them. But second is the mother dog feeding the puppies, which it's this really aggressive noise that sounds more like rats.
Yeah,
honestly.
It sounds like a swarm of rats. I thought it was in Willard, another runner-up. I didn't get a chance to rewatch. I thought maybe Eraserhead is a stronger pick than Crispin Glover and Willard, but I love that movie. And I told him he loved it when I went to his movie, and he's proud of it as well. Unlike Back to the Future.
And there's all these dogs, you know, it's a whole heap of them fighting to get the chance at the same resource. It's a lot of puppies.
Yeah.
And, you know, the mother looks like she's getting sort of overwhelmed by them. And
she's a nice puppy, though. I mean, she's a nice puppy.
Look, they're great looking dogs.
Yeah. But the sound design makes them horrific. Like that's like, it shows how powerful the sound is.
Yeah. And so Mary's dad enters and describes their dinner as man-made chickens smaller than his fist, which terrifying description, to be honest.
But they're new.
They sure are new.
Yeah.
When Henry is asked to carve, the chicken animates and gushes blood when he cuts into it. And the mother seems very excited by this. And she and Mary run off into the kitchen. And when she reemerges, she pulls Henry aside while Mary cries there. And the power surges during their conversation, which leaves them in shadows, while the mom pressures Henry, asking over and over again if he and Mary had sex, and then she starts smooching him herself.
Yeah, there's no distance between these two. He's backed into a shadowy corner. He's like so like embarrassed to be asked about sex at all. I talked about being. He literally says earlier,
I'm too embarrassed,
and this guy is seriously repressed. I'm not surprised that we saw more metaphorical conception, because I can only imagine how painful it would have been if we had seen that on camera.
Absolutely. And in a panic, Henry calls Mary over, and the two of them explain that the other day Mary had a premature baby, although they're not sure it is a baby. And Henry is the dad, so they got to get married. And Henry's nose starts to bleed at this news.
Mm-hmm.
It fades to black. And when we come back, we're immediately greeted by this monstrous baby, swaddled completely except for its face, which is, I mean, it's almost like indescribable. Like it's like a damn old one to me. I just start babbling about it being like smooth and weird nose and protruding.
So, George, you skipped Grandma. You didn't mention Grandma L.
I didn't mention Grandma. I was trying to keep things moving a little bit. Grandma's there. She's in a catatonic state.
She reminded me a little bit of Grandpa in Texas Chainsaw 1 or 2, when the mom puts the spoons in her hands and moves them for her. It's much like the hammer that we can move on from Grandma, but I wanted to.
No, it is very funny too when the mom does the salad tossing there with the grandma's hands, so that she's involved in helping as well. And I think that is actually a really good connection point. I think it does feel a lot like Grandpa using the hammer there.
Baby time.
The baby won't eat, despite Mary literally holding its nose so that it opens its mouth.
Yeah.
Terrible parenting, first of all. And it cries loudly all the time.
Nonstop.
Henry lays down on the bed. And he stares aimlessly at the radiator, and he sort of has this vision where it lights up suddenly and a stage appears behind it. The first of many visions. And after a sleepless night, Mary can't take it anymore, and she leaves Spencer and the child, and she goes back to her parents' house. And I like that as she pulls out her suitcase, her face is pressed against the bed, and it does look like the bars of a jail cell because of the prison that they each feel like they're in. And this is why she's so spitefully saying stuff like, I'll do what I want to do, and lashing out and sort of pushing back against this new paradigm that their lives are in. It's completely been reframed. Henry, now alone with the kid, tries to take care of it, including jamming a thermometer down its throat. And then, in what can only be described as a terrifying jump scare, we learn that this thing is wheezing and covered in sores. It's absolutely horrific.
Yeah, it's like... Oh God, yeah, it is hard to describe what this baby looks like. It's sort of like a furless baby lamb, maybe, or something like that. But it's just covered in like festering sores. It's just awful. And this is another way that I wanted to bring in my experience as a pet care professional. I think, like, a baby is a pet, a furless pet, and
completely dependent on you.
Yeah, and it doesn't know how to speak and tell you what's wrong with it. And I've been in a situation where I have to take care of a little animal and something's going wrong, but I don't know exactly what. I don't know. Yeah, like they're not eating, or they're not going to the bathroom. They're just like not, and just like that's kind of the situation this puts me in. I don't know the experience of having a child, but this is like the worst experience a pet care professional could imagine. Is you turn and then you turn back and the pet has 1,000 little sores on it.
Not ideal.
He needs a vet visit. Let's just say that.
At the very least.
Yeah.
I do laugh, though, when Henry tries to leave, and every time he opens the door, the baby starts wailing again. That's very funny.
That actually also reminded me of, like, when I'm dog sitting and I have to, like, step out of the apartment and I hear the barking of the dog behind me, and I'm like, is this just going to continue until I come back? Or, like, are the neighbors going to complain? Yeah. And he's just trapped there with this kid, and it's... Yeah.
That's exactly it. He really is trapped, and he starts having these visions of the stage behind the radiator again. And instead of curtains pulling away, as sort of representative in this dystopia that they're in, these big concrete slabs pull away instead. That is very representative of, David talks very enthusiastically. I think in the Mulholland Drive special features is when he's talking about this, with the way that it sort of pulls away and you enter into another world. And that's why he loves these curtains so much, because it's like entering the world of the movie. And, you're really like throwing yourself into it. And I think that these curtains being concrete and pulling away, that's the world that Henry is in. And so for him to sort of visit this other world where things are different and he doesn't have this responsibility, I really like that he takes this trope that he like not even a trope, but like a director trademark, I guess, of having curtains and sort of flipping the script on what it would become this early in the game. We also get the lady in the radiator appears this time.
Yes.
And she has these big puffy cheeks that, again, feels like just off. And ironically has sort of a girl next door look compared to the actual girl next door.
Yes. I have a little bit on her. She wasn't in the original script for Eraserhead. He says he was sitting in the food room one day. That's one of the places in the stable mini mansion. And I drew a picture of the lady in the radiator, but I didn't know where it came from. But it was meaningful to me when I saw it finally drawn. And he thought she'll go in the radiator, and then it turned out that the radiator that they were using actually had a little compartment where she could go in.
Wow.
It's just like this magical thinking. It just it was an instrument for producing warmth in a room. It made me happy. Like me as Henry say. Imagine that. He's like the protagonist. I don't know. I saw this opening to another place. So he ran into the set and he looked at the radiator. This is the only radiator he'd seen with a little chamber with it didn't have a stage in it at the time, obviously, but it had space.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
What would you do if you looked at your radiator and there was just a stage?
I would love it. I would love to watch this lady every night. So it says the lady in the radiator had bad skin. I think she had bad acne as a child and used a lot of pancake makeup to smooth that out. But inside is where the happiness in her comes from. Her outward appearance is not the thing. And me, I just find that very inspiring and beautiful.
Hell yeah.
And she is at first sort of a horrific sight, because she's got these big sort of textured, lumpy cheeks.
Yeah.
But we haven't gotten to her song yet. But
no, not
she's kind of an oasis for Henry.
Yeah, absolutely. And as she's moving around the stage, the sperm start falling on the stage around her.
The billies.
Yeah, the billies fall. She starts stomping on them after they get in the way of her dancing around. And, I think that we'll sort of see that not only is she an oasis, but I think that she's very much sort of representative of, like, she's a manifestation of his subconscious desire to return to normal, to kill the kid, basically, and get rid of this constraint that's been placed upon him.
Mm-hmm.
Mary finally returns, but their relationship is in shambles. They're petty towards each other. Every little thing annoys Henry about her now. She's hogging the bed.
Yep.
The sound of rubbing her eyes is incredibly
There's
loud.
So many she is like constantly itching herself way back when we first meet her.
Clamping her jaws.
Yeah.
Chomping away. I'm curious if you think that this is like a vision or a dream or not, because he starts pulling the sperm creatures, the billies, out of Mary again. And to me, I think that this is kind of the same as when he's viewing the woman in the radiator stepping on them. I think that he's asleep and he's fantasizing about sort of undoing it all.
Right. Yeah. You don't totally know there's one very clear dream sequence in this movie, but there's a lot of kind of shifting in and out of, there's a lot of dream imagery, and that's that's something that I love about Uncle Dave.
Definitely. And the beautiful girl across the hall comes over because she locked herself out, and Henry he covers the baby's mouth so it stops crying.
Oh yeah, we're fully in dream mode then, but I just wanted to shout out one thing about Mary. And this is crazy. She says this, the actress, Charlotte Stewart, that before they would shoot, he put an ear infection in her ear every day. So she would just be uncomfortable. I don't know how you do that. And put an ear infection. It was just weird. She said that. I'm not making this up.
Yeah.
But these actors seem like they were suffering slightly. Oh, and Jack Fisk, who plays the man in the planet, that makeup hurt him a lot. I'll find the passage about that. Let's go on.
All right. Well, I also just want to say that the lighting is very dark in this scene, and I don't think that that's an accident.
Oh, sorry, just a second. Jack was in a lot of pain because of the body and face makeup I put on him in that scene. It took 3 days for him to get back to normal.
Damn.
Rough, yeah.
Suffer for your art, I guess.
Yeah. Or David's art, not his.
Well, it's still his art.
Yeah, it's a collaborative art form.
Yeah. The beautiful girl across the hall and Henry smooch and ostensibly have sex, but the bed has become a crater filled with liquid that they sink into, and the girl in the radiator sings Heaven, and she repeats that everything is fine. This is much more representative of the life that Henry used to have, and this is sort of him reaching out to get a taste of that life that he used to have. This is why he covers up the baby's mouth. This is why he has extra relation. I guess they're married at this point, an extramarital affair, and this manifestation of his desire to kill the kid just says this is fine. Everything is fine. We need to get back to the way things were.
Mm-hmm.
After this encounter, Henry dreams again, and this is the very vivid dream sequence. And this time his head flies off because from underneath, a head that looks like the child's pops up. And I think that this is sort of very much indicating that he sees his own flaws and he's worried about passing them on to the kid. I think that this is something that a lot of people worry about when they think about children in the future, and that's, do I deserve to pass on my genes when I have, X, Y, and Z flaws? And they're so magnified when you look in the mirror. And, I think that that's very much what's happening in this movie as well, is that, he sees himself sort of as a monster who's failed because of his position in this world. And he's worried about that being the case for his child as well.
Mm-hmm.
The decapitated head sinks into a pool of blood and falls from the sky, and it crashes and splits in the street. And a kid brings it to a factory where it's made into pencil erasers, tested and brushed to the side, dissipating into the air. And I think that this is very much, not only do I think that he's a worker, like you said, that this is a very blue-collar protagonist, I think that he's this world that he lives in and the child now, this is trying to say that it's like taking pretty much everything he has to offer, that he feels completely worn away by the world that they live in and by having this child draining him.
Yeah, and he's used up and fed into a machine. It's kind of like the industrial machine of the factory that he works at, and like the larger societal machine.
Sure.
I just want to shout out the boss at the pencil factory is wearing 2 ties like Uncle Dave himself. He passed on his fashion to his characters.
There you go. Like we said, a very personal movie. Henry knocks at the door of the beautiful woman across the hall, but she's not there, and the baby laughs at him.
Oh God, the baby laughing.
I genuinely find the laugh to be pretty endearing.
Oh, okay.
I think that this is the moment where I am like, all right, kid, you're okay.
He's got his moments. He's kind of cute. His little bundle is some from afar. It's endearing. But I don't know, George. The laughing reminded me a little bit of Evil Dead 2. The deer. He's at his breaking point, and this thing starts cracking up at him. And
it's true, but it has a very deep voice, unlike the deer, where it's like.
Yeah,
I think it's very, very funny, and he finally hears the return of the beautiful woman across the hall, and he goes to see her, but she's with another man, and he turns into the baby head while he's standing in this doorway, which is an image that I just love. I think that this picture of him standing there with the baby head is just spectacular. It's so funny. It's very evocative. It shows that he feels like a monster, basically.
Yeah, and it's also when his head pops off earlier, when he's kind of on stage with the lady. First, the head is kind of blasted off with like some flesh, of phallus of some kind, and then that retreats, and then the baby's head pops out of there. And then this is a different scene in the dream. Yeah, his reaction to the sexy neighbor with a different man. It just like this silent screaming baby face. Like, it really, it shows that he's so unready for fatherhood that he is baby.
Yeah. And he returns to his room alone again, except for the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's finally had enough. And he grabs some scissors and he starts to cut into the swaddling that the baby has been in this entire time. And that starts the baby crying off. And you're sort of like wondering why this might be the case until he finishes. And it turns out that was holding in his guts.
Mm. Yeah, that's
Fucked
just
up.
It is a fucking mess in there. It is just a nasty, goopy mess. There's like some heaving. I want to say their lungs or heart.
It swells up.
Those look real.
Yeah, for sure.
So he punctures one of the lungs, and it just blood everywhere.
This baby dies horribly.
Yeah, the foam gets everywhere, and then its neck becomes a long noodle. Like this like end scene for this creature. This beautiful baby boy.
Spike. We hardly knew ye, Spike. Rip to a real one.
It reminds me of both of the Evil Dead 1 and 2 kind of have like a claymation wild like creature transformation that they leave to the end, and this baby's neck becoming this long noodle, and then its head becomes big and it's appearing all over in the strobing room.
Yeah, the power is surging and the droning is intensifying, and it becomes the head grows to basically the size of the room. This is it having taken over Henry's whole life, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes the planet from earlier, which explodes as Henry stands in shock in the middle of a cloud of eraser dust.
That's the iconic shot from the poster.
Oh yeah, it looks incredible as well. Well deserved that it's the iconic shot. But the man in the planet is struggling with his levers, which are now emitting sparks. And Henry and the lady in the radiator hug as the shadows that have been so prevalent this whole time are replaced by a bright white light. And again, I think that she's been this manifestation of him wanting to kill the kid. And this is him being assured that he did the right thing and it will all go back to normal. You know, he's sort of had this like Zen-like passivity this entire time, trying to let things wash over him. But he gets erased away until finally he's broken and he commits this act of killing his son. And this whole thing is just it's so personal while still also being kind of like a parody of family life and having this really incredible surrealist nature. And so, Andy, we've now reached the part of the show where we sum up why this is the best horror movie ever made. You know, you listed so many incredible horror movies today, and we talked a little bit about what makes them all so great. And so I think that you've really set yourself up to have to really bring the heat on this one, because I agree that this is the best horror movie ever made, but it's up against some stiff competition. So why don't you go ahead and start things off with a summary of why you think it's so good?
Well, so I think I'll start off with Uncle Dave's own words about his own work.
Sure.
After, you know, you always have mixed feelings after you create something and mixed reactions. Famously, the Variety review said, Eraserhead is a sickening bad taste exercise made by David Lynch under the auspices of the American Film Institute. Like a lot of AFI efforts, this pick has good tech values, particularly the inventive sound mixing, but little substance or subtlety. I say, you know, who needs subtlety, at least? But he was able to get some distance from it, and he was able to relax and see it. After the film was over, he said, it's a perfect film. So I respect Lynch so much as an artist, and maybe not as a animal rights. Well, we don't know what he's up to over there. But this movie just plunges you so thoroughly into a disturbed psyche and the uncomfortable feeling. And when it comes to, I can enjoy all kinds of horror movies. Like it doesn't have to be body horror. It doesn't have to be something that affects me psychologically. But I think the ones that I really remember and the ones that hit me in my core are ones like this that really put you inside of the protagonist's perspective and make you a little uncomfortable. And I am, you know, I don't want to sound like too much of a fuckboy or anything, but I'm not ready to have kids, and I'm pretty confident there are no little AT Pratts running around. But having to take care of a baby like that is, like I said, the ultimate nightmare of a pet care professional. I am happy that my new baby girl Pandora has not sprouted 1,000 festering pustules, and knock on wood. But I love this movie so much, and it is not a movie that I would recommend to everybody for how truly horrific I find it. And I was talking over. I do a movie club with my sister and my brother-in-law, and I talked to them about choosing my movie for this. And I was saying, I think it's going to be Eraserhead. And one is that they were not crazy about the more we did Twin Peaks together too, and they were not as crazy about some of the more avant-garde Twin Peaks The Return. Episode 8 is like a lot of Twin Peaks fans' favorite, but they were like, this is a little bit it was not their comfort zone, let's say. And I would love to be an uncle, and I don't want them. I'm not going to recommend a movie where this is what happens to a young couple with their new baby boy. So I just think it's like it could not be more effective for putting you in a horrific mindset. And for that reason and more, Eraserhead is the number one horror film of all time.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that Eraserhead is the best horror movie ever made because I think that, first of all, it looks absolutely spectacular. I think that even just on its technical merits, this movie is incredible. I think that Jack Nance is bringing incredible comedy chops and incredible pathos as well in the dramatic moments. And I think that as much as David Lynch is bringing himself to it, I think that Jack Nance's contributions can't really be overstated either.
Mm-hmm.
But that does bring us to David. And I think that for David Lynch to exist so thoroughly out of people's comfort zones and to be so confident in his ability to communicate themes, or not even themes, but just the moods and everything that he is trying to communicate, so much of that passion and that confidence, I think, really exudes off the screen. I think that it tells you exactly what it's here to say. I think that the reason that it is able to affect people so profoundly and has such a great message about responsibility, which is terrifying, is because it feels very personal. Mm-hmm. Even though it does have these surreal moments, and even though everything is kind of weird, it still is very recognizable as sort of this allegory for family and that feeling of fear of responsibility. And for it to happen or for the fact that it happened at all is a miracle. You know, they had to work so hard to get the money together and everything. And this is the beginning of one of my favorite directors' careers in feature-length filmmaking. And without its success as a cult film, I don't think that we get the career path that David Lynch has had. And I think that would be a great tragedy. Mm-hmm. And for this to really have been the thing that I think sets him on this path, I think that's what makes this the best horror movie ever made to me.
Phew, I'm glad you agree with me, George, or else I was about to erase your head.
Oh, shit. The joke's so nice we used it twice. AT, I want to thank you so much for coming on, man. This was an absolute joy. And please, why don't you tell the people where they can check out your work, which I love and highly endorse.
Thank you. You can follow me on Instagram at ATPratt, Twitter at Cartoon Tycoon. atpratt.storeenvy.com has all of my comics and zines. You may say, Andy, you haven't released a comic in a year. You're taking too long, and you just clam down. I have there's many works there that you have never seen, and 2020, the COVID time was not a great time for comic book festivals, which I usually use to prepare new work for. Why am I making all these excuses? All I want to say is that 2021 is going to be my year, and I have big things coming at you, big comic projects in the works. So yeah, if you want to read my stuff, I would appreciate it, and you can check out my stuff.
Do it.
Yeah. Cut out the pause.
No,
I'm like frantically looking for like more details for my little book, and I love the movie, so I'm thank you for having me on. I just hope that I did Uncle Dave justice.
Yeah, I think we did. And if you want to listen to me on Twitter, that's Little Horror PHL. That username follows me pretty much everywhere, so you can find me wherever. It's also the Patreon. If you want to get all kinds of great bonus episodes and stuff, like I said, there's an episode about Begotten by Elis Marriage, which takes a lot of influence from this. There's also a new episode about Solaris up on the Patreon, which this is one of the things I am like most proud of having done. I think this episode is really great. And, you know, I know that it sucks when you can't afford to get content and when things go behind a paywall. So if you really, I want people to hear this. So if you really can't swing the Patreon, then message me, I guess, somewhere, and I'll make sure that you can get a copy of this thing. But I would really appreciate it if you did join the Patreon. And I think that it's worth paying for. I think that it's really good. I think that a lot of work goes into this show. And so if you enjoy it, you know, it would be great if you could throw me a couple bucks every month. And that's patreon.com/Little Horror PHL. That's enough. I won't even ask you to rate and review this week because of that long spiel about the Patreon.
Everyone needs to rate and review, George. I will tell them if you don't, and sign up for the Patreon as well. George is a good man. And also, I just want to restate that I may not have released a new comic recently, but I have taken in a new cat, and that's all thanks to you, George. And thank you so much.
Yes, my pleasure. I love that Pando gets a new nice home, and that she gets to be with someone who clearly loves her very much. And cats deserve that. And folks, if you could see the video, you would have seen appearances by both of my cats who popped in.
It's true.
That's it. We're at the end. That's it for me.
I have some parting words, George. Or
okay.
Let us say Uncle Dave does.
We wish you peace and happiness, and long live Eraserhead. Thanks a million.
There we go.
Who could say it better than that?
Peace and happiness, George.
Bye, everyone.